Right, we'll go. We'll start. So, Monday the 5th of March, Hilton Parish Council meeting. Item 1 on the agenda is to receive any apologies for absence and declaration of interest. We've got apologies from Rob and from Sarah. You've seen that. And any declarations of interest. The next part of the meeting is that we close the Parish Council meeting and open up to the floor. Any comments from the public? Andy?
I've got a couple, Peter. Regarding agenda item 3.1A14, you may remember back when we were making the, points to the A14 planning consultation, we were trying to get sound mitigation put in place, looking at bunds or other soundproofing materials. Unfortunately, the inspector decided to accept the Highways Agency sound expert rather than ours, as we'd had an existing report that showed that we would be affected by sound. I brought this to the meeting back in the 4th. South Cambs, just for everybody's information here, District Council has managed to get the planning inspector to make an amendment to the consent order for the A14, directing them to monitor the noise levels at certain locations before the new A14 is opened and after it is opened. And if the noise levels have increased above the predicted level that their sound consultant, they are directed to put in place sound mitigation to address that. So, as I said on the 4th, I've sort of brought this forward, and Peter said, I think you're taking it forward as a parish council. Last month, I mentioned it again. Seems you've not had any meetings and nothing's progressed. We're sort of 3 months on from that now. It's really important to Hilton that of anything we can do, and that's an example of something that a district council can do, that we take that to, Parish Council should take that to HDC, perhaps as a suggestion. So, the question there is, again, any progress at all?
And the answer will be the same as last month, which is when there is progress, it will be put on the agenda.
Well, can I suggest perhaps progress needs to be made? Anyway, okay, so no more progress. So second comment is about point 5.4. I was really shocked when I read Spectrum this month's Spectrum, of the accusations that the Parish Council had made against me, saying that I had published incorrect information. I'm not aware of publishing any such, and I asked for some evidence of that, or what it was, and had no response from Parish Council. I received a number of phone calls and emails from villagers who then read Spectrum, also asking what this is all about, and I said, actually, I don't know. And the first time I was aware of that this was being published was on the 21st of February, because the Parish Council minutes for the December meeting weren't on the website, so I didn't have any sight of what was going to be said, so it was really out of the blue to me. There's also something else in there, so it indicates that I published incorrect information in emails and on the website. I'd like to know what that is, because that's not true, as far as I'm concerned. And then it also says in there that emails were published under the guise of the editor. Well, I am the editor, no guise. Guise is understood, in all dictionary terms, that it is the appearance of someone or something, especially when intended to deceive. Now, I take that as defamatory. Effectively, I'm being accused of deceiving, I guess, as part of that discussion. So, really, the point here is I've had accusations made against me. I believe they're not true in any sense. I think they're defamatory. I'd like the Parish Council to consider what they put in writing is correct and accurate. I'm happy to correct if not. I'm taking account of your request, which is ironic really, the request of the Parish Council to ask me to give you 24 hours notice for anything I publish about the Parish Council. You didn't have the courtesy to inform me that you were going to publish information about me in Spectrum or elsewhere. So that's really it. I'm happy to answer any questions during the meeting. Please, when you're discussing this topic, don't sort of imagine this black wall's gone up and I'm not here. I'm happy to answer questions, happy to enter into a discussion over that point. It's very important. I'd like a retraction. I'd like something published to say that I didn't publish incorrect information. I think I've sent the Parish Council all the emails and stuff I've published on the website. In fact, the first email I sent around to the village was nothing to do with the Parish Council. That was to do with the HDC call for sites. And the second one was really just to inform people that actually the Parish Council were having an extraordinary meeting and everybody should attend, it would be good. So very positive. So, not very happy really about any of that, as you could probably guess.
Fine, we'll cover that when we get to it on the agenda.
Third part, to do with the website, is I think at the last meeting last month, you had a vote and agreed to publish the Hilton Village website address on the Parish Council website. I can't find it. Has it been done? Has that action taken
We'll
place?
cover that when we come to that part
Good.
of the agenda.
Okay. That's all, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the board? Dory?
I've got my perennial rant about the footpath. It's not really a rant, it's just an observation that it's on the minutes, on the agenda. We're going to be discussing them, and I'd like to know if you will be making the footpaths wider so that people can walk side by side down the footpaths. And also I hope that you'll be getting rid of the wooden edging on the paths, which I consider, I've always hated the footpaths when they were first done. I expressed my opinions then and they haven't changed. I just think it's dangerous to have those wooden edges. And also I actually think the colour of the gravel, for want of a better word, is very out of keeping in the village. I remember when I was a young child growing up in London, the thing our parents did was to clear the ashes out of the grate and scatter them up the footpath in the garden, because that's the way things were done, and that's what it just looks like to me, that someone's been out and cleared their hearth and scattered it all up the path.
Yes.
So if we had something more attractive, a village colour, rather than this grey stuff. And I hope you can answer that. And while I'm here, thank you for the team that came up outside the area where I live and dealt with the old pine tree this morning that keeps dropping its branches on people's heads and things. That's appreciated.
Yeah, I think there was some work done today.
That's good.
Mark?
Many months ago, you made a commitment that you would have a working group for the pavilion.
Mm-hmm.
It hasn't appeared, has it?
Yeah, we have an active working group.
You were going to ask the village to join it, and nobody in the village has been invited. Kieran promised me he would, and he hasn't done. He stood just there. I remember absolutely vividly.
And what did I promise?
You promised that you were just going to check a few things and then you would ask the village to join a working group. You might not remember it, but I do. Now, the other thing is, it's going to cost £70,000 with a grant, and I think you should tell the village how you've arrived at that price. You need to itemise what costs what. Another point is that the village needs to be proud of this, and if they're just going to be given it, all dolled up, looking great, £70,000 worth, they'd be more proud of it if they'd had a hand in it, if they'd had a paintbrush or two, or a scrubbing brush or two. Then they would own it, and they'd be much prouder of it. And so when you're debating it, I hope you give a reason why you've gone back on your word, and how you're going to bring the village into it in the future. It's not been a happy situation from day one when you all became councillors. Also, as I've said before, there was another design which was voted on when several others were councillors. And I think you could have easily just had that as a comparison with what you've done. Who has designed it? This new one.
We'll cover that when we get to it on the agenda.
Patrick Landucci, who is an architect, designed the first one that was voted on in here. And he is an architect. So again, I think you do really well to show that as a comparison for people to say what they like of the two ideas, because they're quite radical in comparison with one another. So,
thank you, Margaret.
I'm tired of this. I really would like to see a happier situation than we've got. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else on the floor? In that case, I shall close the floor at open at the Parish Council meeting again, just comment that on number 2 it is actually to approve the minutes of the 5th of February. So we apologise for that. So you've had the minutes of the 5th of February meeting. There have been no comments raised about them, so I shall propose that those are accepted.
We didn't have this here. Which one came first?
Yeah.
This is Graham, Kieran,
Oh, yes, it was, mate.
Sarah and Joe were not here. So
Yeah.
Sharon kindly took the minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. So I propose that they're accepted.
Same now.
Thank you. So people are able to vote for me and Ian, Sharon and George. Okay. So item 3 on the agenda. No, we don't have it.
Last time, that's because I wasn't here. I forgot something.
We did the minutes of the 4th of December and the extraordinary meeting at the last meeting. They were both on the website prior to the Parish Council meeting on the 5th of February. Right, 3.1, A14 updates, traffic through the village and state of footpath. So seen correspondence that Joe's been having with highways, where Joe has taken the comments that she has received to highways saying that there are still vehicles coming through the village, they're damaging the curbs, and Jade is going to have a further conversation with the senior general foreman about this, and we asked about the update on the pathway towards 1198, and we've not had a further update from that, so we'll ask you to again please badger Jade for a response. It might be time for us to perhaps meet with them again.
I have suggested a meeting,
Yeah.
but I haven't had any response since I
Suggested
suggested.
I know she says something about taking drastic action.
Yes,
It'd be helpful to know what she means by that.
yeah, I haven't been able to get a response from her since that email. As you can see, I've emailed her a couple of times since then to try to get an update, but haven't had anything back, so I'll just keep on, so hopefully.
Chipping away, okay.
And then, so we'll ask Jade to keep on about that. There was a comment I know at the last Parish Council meeting, but with regards to item 3.2, for indicated by us, whether to ask highways whether they would actually fund it as part of the quid pro quo for the. So perhaps we could mention that at the meeting we had with them. If you can, we'll go on from there. Any other comments?
Just wanted to mention within this, hope I'm still within the same section, it says it's been one resident managed to get Jonathan Ginogli involved, and some improvements have been made. Do you know whereabouts that was and what improvements were?
It's the path that goes up, it's Mere Way, and he had, Jane had a letter from Ginobili saying, look, I've got some photographs, and the whole path's been resurfaced. So I thought, well, that's interesting, I'll go and have a walk. So I went up to the path, and from the gravelly road up to where the Hall Road for the A14 is, there's a stretch, I didn't measure it, but it's probably roughly about 20 yards that has been resurfaced, but either side of it is just a quagmire.
Right.
So I took some photographs and I sent them to Jo.
I've sent them in.
And she sent them on, so
Right.
the whole path had been reset, which was a little bit of an overstatement, I would say.
Okay.
Yes.
So, and I did copy Jane on that as well, because now she's got Jonathan John on his ear. If she keeps pushing at him, that's great.
Right. Good. Fingers crossed. Thank you.
So we'll continue to find out. Yes, let's see if we can. But once bad weather, I know they can say once it's wet and snowy and wet again, but not all road will be restricted use.
Just a kind of tangential point, but my sense is that with various developments around the A14, the footpaths, the idea of the cycle path, the issues of sound and so on, is it time for the A14 team to kind of perhaps get together again and look at a concerted effort to influence them, let's put it that way? Thoughts?
Yeah, we can do that, can't
Also, I do wonder whether some of the erosion of the curbs is actually down to the A14, or whether it's residents parking on the verge, because there are a number of regular people who park on the grass verge, and I don't know kind of where we stand with that, if that's allowed really or not, because then you get traffic trying to jut in to allow other traffic to pass the parked vehicle is particularly bad up Church End. So it's eroding away the edge, and I'm not sure it is, because it has improved just recently, but I'm not sure it is very 14 traffic, or whether parking cars on that soft road is wearing it away and eroding it. Does anyone else notice that?
It's wet winter as well.
Peter, sorry to interrupt. Can't hear a word anybody's saying.
If you could speak up here.
Okay.
I think that was only going to be a temporary thing whilst building work was being done.
Oh.
So probably discussing.
Yeah, and it would help if people knew who was doing it, and then we could address the villages directly.
That's just localised, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's a more fundamental problem throughout.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Like the man with the sweeper that doesn't have a steering wheel.
The man with
The man with the sweeper who doesn't quite manage to do the bit of the triangle.
Mr. Lynch.
Yeah, Mr. Lynch going down.
Yeah.
And he's also got a digger that goes up and down.
He's up,
There's a lot of tyre tracks on the green there.
There are, actually.
It's all over. And it'd be hard to say that it is all A14 traffic, but there's more traffic as a result of A14, and therefore they do need to take some responsibility. Give us some assistance later on.
Yeah.
Give us some
suggestions. So we'll ask them. So 3.2 is an update from the traffic police regarding the fact that they said they were going to come and do some traffic monitoring in just before Christmas, Jan, just after Christmas. And we have chased them to ask when that's going to happen. He said, I've not had the capacity to get this arranged. I have a significant number of issues dealing with, which will take up my time since the beginning of the year. I've not forgotten about your complaint. I will respond to you once I've had the opportunity to place devices. So we'll ask Joe to keep on at them about when they're going to do it, because it would be nice if they did it as they had promised to do it. And the speed indicator devices, as I said, there was a comment at last month's meeting that we could ask highways to perhaps look at funding that, because it was about £4,000, wasn't it? So, and when we meet with them, then we'll float that under their noses.
Do we have a date for that meeting? can't remember.
And we just said that Joe's asked for it, but
Oh, okay.
she asked for a date and time, but she hadn't received a response yet about that.
Probably a good idea if when that date is arrived, that if the A14 group be beforehand,
Yes.
so we can sing from the same hymn sheet at that meeting, rather than having a meeting with them there.
Yeah, that would make sense. Good idea.
To force our hand a bit.
Yeah. Happy with that?
Mm.
3.3 is the local plan that was consulted on and information was sent on behalf of the Parish Council. And what we didn't know, Joe, at the last meeting was whether you had had anything from other parishes.
Yeah, well, I had about 3 or 4 parishes come back to me. A couple of them just thanked us for making them aware, and they were going to look into it further, but none of them seemed particularly interested in sort of taking it forward together. That was it really. I've checked with HDC, we haven't got a date yet for the
Feedback from.
yeah. They said they'll update their website when they have. So yeah, that's it really.
Thank you.
So we've not had any response from our submission to the...
No.
On the black hole.
Yes and no. Because they did put out what they then proposed to submit as a draft plan, didn't they? Which said that the bit about the small settlement was out as part of the consultation. No, that was part of the consultation, wasn't it? Yes, forget that. Scotch that. Sorry.
Are you aware of what the next date is?
No, I rang them today just to double check, and they haven't got any other dates for us at the moment. They just said that they'd update their website when anything's confirmed. I think they did say something about the end of March on there, but not an actual date yet.
Do you think it's worth us going, sending a little delegation to HDC to discuss this?
Yeah. I do think it's very personal to so
Do you have the strength of feeling in the village? I mean,
yeah. I'm happy to go.
shall I liaise with Joe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And given the information you had to give out about that, I'm quite happy to go. Lauren, if you could,
Yeah.
that'd be great. Thank you. 3.4 is bus survey. So last month, Ian and I updated you on the meeting we had attended at St Ives with representatives from other local parishes, and they have sent a letter, a draft of the letter that they propose to send to Cambridgeshire County Council following that meeting, which was circulated to you all. What do we do? The reply's got to go by the 23rd of March. It confirms roughly what we said at that last meeting, that we'd like to meet up with a representative from the Cambridgeshire County Council. And that at that time there are 3 of us who were originally going to go, weren't there? And we'll quite happily go along to the next meeting and see what Cambridgeshire County Council have to say in response to.
So this draft has not...
No, it's going to go on the 23rd
23rd, yeah, okay.
of March. That Alison Benfield's company email said she'd like any comments about the 23rd of March. I haven't got any comments to make on the letter.
Seems pretty straightforward to me.
Yeah,
We should support it.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the little map that goes with it.
Yes. That's which, again,
Yeah.
kind of made
the bus
sense.
route.
Yeah, because it was about getting people into the hub of St Ives
That's right.
to be able to use the busway and then perhaps out to Huntingdon. With the comment that it would be perhaps better that the bus didn't take an hour to get from here to St Ives.
Yes, but that's the only thing that's missing there is sort of possible timescales.
Yeah.
That can be raised at the meeting.
Timescale of
Each journey, I mean, if it takes
right,
an hour
yeah.
to get from here to St Ives, frankly,
Yeah.
you can walk it in that time.
yes, yeah. No, he spoke about timescales about when people wanted it.
I see,
Timescale,
yeah.
Actual
Well, there's that too.
Yes.
Okay.
And that will come back about the fact that nobody was on the bus.
Mm.
It does make some good points, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I can't find the letter, but there's sort of 3 or 4 good arguments as to why the bus route's important. That's good.
So we will take that back to St Ives and say yes, please, and we will go to any meeting that they are able to arrange with Cambridge County Council. And update when we have something. Okay. So the next item is cycle paths. Now, unfortunately, I don't think your photos were put up, did they? Until very
Yes, I
late.
don't understand that,
No.
but I'm sure I had
No.
sent them. Well, where we are with the psychopaths is what's in the supporting documents, psychopaths further update, blah, 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 some of our requests. That is a draft of it's like the structure for an application to get funding for the cycle path.
Yeah.
And it's based on what Mike Davis at the council has suggested, plus what the person at Sostrand suggested that we needed to cover. And you'll see on the suggested draft that it would be helpful for us to say something about what the affected landowners feel about the proposed route, and I'll come back to the route in a minute. And that we also say something about, where are we, the potential demand for using, well, it's not just cycle, it's cycle, footpaths, what they call it non-motorised users, but that does include people in disability scooters and stuff like that. But some indication of the demographics that would say it's worth doing. And given that we have school children to workers to leisure things, I don't think that would be difficult, but any help offered on that score would be good. But that's the outline, so I'm really asking for approval that that structure's okay. If anyone's got any other suggestions, ideas, then that would be great. The proposed route, Graham's dug out a map which is working behind Kieran and Ian there. Ian, can I ask you to say something about the route? Ian very kindly waded through up to his knees in the proposed pathway, which goes, it's on the B1040, or starts on the B1040. Over to you, Ian.
Right.
Sorry, if you go that way.
Yes, then
As
it's all
we're open to the public, hopefully get a bit more behind it.
Right.
We'll all see.
Right, so currently there is the footpath that goes up alongside the B1040 from Hilton up to the Five Arch Bridge. Now, I don't believe that that footpath is shown on any maps, but it does exist. It was put in 10 or a dozen years ago, or so, perhaps even longer than that. So that's the start of it. We then get to the bit that includes the new road, and what is being suggested within the A14 scheme is that there are these NMUs put there, isn't it?
Yes.
So that would then allow us to get up here to this point. Am I getting this right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, good.
Path there.
these are the lakes here, aren't they?
It's on there, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it then goes, because these are the catchment ponds for the road. Where I've got my fingers, these are the fishing lakes that exist up
Yeah.
there. And so all I did was to just wander along this and take a few photographs to show what exists there currently. Because I believe it's a path that
Yeah.
very few people actually use from the village. It's used a lot from Fenson End, actually.
Is it?
It's a public footpath here.
Well,
Yeah,
it's
it is,
actually-
yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm.
I mean, you get to this end, and it then sort of wanders here, that's right, and then shoots down
Yeah.
where Dodds Brown used to
Yeah.
have their
Yeah.
depot
Yeah.
there. So it goes like that. So I say there's lots of dog walkers come belting out of Fenstanton along here, but Hilton residents are few and far between actually using it. And it does exist in quite a good state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Getting to it is our big issue, isn't it?
That's right.
That's right.
So, say, if we can keep these in good order, obviously we hope to have a good pathway here. It just then needs a little bit of link up and possibly a better surface or some structure put along there. And then that gives us quite a good link.
And then there's the underpass to Fenstanton.
Yeah.
And at least for some of the rest of the journey to St Ives, you have cycle paths.
That's right.
But the requirement for any new path is that it's a metre wide, so that it's things can pass each other. And the part of this request is to ensure that if there is some existing parts, as there are, then that those are sufficiently widened, that the path that the construction people will put on the new bit of the 1040 is on the right, same side as the existing pathway. And Gerard Smith at the Legacy team, A14 Legacy team, is going to check that out for us to try and ensure that that is the case. So with that information and Ian's excellent photographs, etc., the idea is to provide all of that to the County Council to say, give us the money and do the work. You know, this help to fund it. But the one missing thing beyond that is getting the support of landowners. Both he said that was useful and would speed up any evaluation of our application, and the Sustrans chap said the same thing. So Kieran helpfully gave us a map of who owns which bit, and I'm trying to get hold of one of the landowners to open the conversation. And I know last time we met, I said that I would draft a letter to send them all, but there's really only two, I think, that would be affected by the proposed route. So I actually thought maybe a more informal approach might be a better way to start.
Is it actually two, or is it A1 now? Because also that is going to be a wasted piece of land between two pieces of water, isn't it?
Here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a strip.
Yeah, but it was, obviously, there was a
It was
field
part of
there.
the field.
There was a field. Now it's going to be water on both sides. You
Yeah.
wonder if anyone would actually want it.
I mean, it is this side of the hedge.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Mm.
And it's whoever owns these lakes,
Yes.
which I don't really know.
I'm not sure
But
that was on the
then
map.
down
I
here
didn't go that far.
is West End Farm.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know, it used to be a chap called Roger Everdell.
It is.
Is it still?
He's still
Right.
there.
Yeah,
Right.
it is.
It's
And
in
then it
his
goes on.
late
Yeah.
80s.
I've got to say.
Yeah.
He must like he owns all that land.
Right. Because this, at this point, the path is actually just along the field margin.
Yeah.
It's not shielded by a fence or a hedge or anything like that. So it's just along the field margin. So
So that would be an important part.
it would.
I definitely think it's worth a face-to-face meeting
Yeah.
with him
Yes.
because he's quite a character.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
It's fun too, right?
I last saw him about 35 years ago and it stayed with me.
Well, if anybody knows, any of the landowners that we're talking about, I sort of, well, I've met one, but I don't know the others. So if there is anybody,
Who owns
Peter Burton.
There's gravel
I don't
pits.
think Peter's affected, is he?
I don't think he is, but
I don't
we
know,
need just to check
depends on
on
which
that.
side of the road,
Yes.
which side of the path is.
And that's probably not critical who owns the
Yeah.
gravel pits.
Yes, and I don't know.
Yeah.
So I don't know. So
It's
anyhow,
probably owned by the, you know, there's a sort of business park developments, it's probably all the same
okay.
ownership, that whole site.
But there'll be plenty of gravel coming out from that lake to go on the path, so
Yeah.
it wouldn't be a very
Okay.
costly operation.
Well, I could do
Yeah.
some digging to find out who does own.
The only thing is, I'm pretty sure that the path is on the wrong side at the moment, the Emmet, because you look at that
And
line,
then you, yes. Yeah.
it's heavier. I think it's on the west,
Here.
yes. So the sooner we
Right.
get to talk, this
Yeah.
Gerald Smith, has he got any influence?
Yeah, yeah,
Good.
yeah. No,
The
he
sooner we
said-
get it changed, the better.
Well, he gave that impression.
Good.
Right.
So,
Let's do that.
yeah.
We asked Joe to write highways on that specific point as a separate email, because
Yeah.
at the moment they're not
Pencil
doing any
movement.
work on that tree, but they will be
Yes.
soon, but the slopes are up, aren't they? So at
Yeah.
some point they're going to go back to start laying tarmac and aggregates and all that sort of thing. So we could ask if we did it now.
Yeah. Because it doesn't want to get muddled up with other emails about traffic and things, it needs to be its own little
A
email.
separate email, because it would naturally run from the end of the existing footpath out of the
Yeah,
village,
yeah,
Yeah.
right up to.
right up to that spot, yeah.
Yeah.
And I drove past it the other day. There's a signpost which says public footpath on the north side, but it points that way, not what you'd imagine, that way across the field.
It
Yeah.
used to, Peter, because
Oh, yeah, I'm sure it's been
dog.
adjusted by the building work that's going on, because it's right on the edge of the site, where they, where it's fenced off. There's a fence on the field
Yeah.
side.
So identifying all the relevant landowners and chattering to them is a number one priority. Any more information we might hold somewhere about the demography, so throw some numbers in there, apart from saying there's a few of these people and those people, which doesn't go down sufficiently well, would be helpful. The other thing I said was speaking to other people who got some funding. I haven't spoken yet to Bluntisham and Erith, so that's to do for me. I did have some correspondence with the Great Paxton, because they've had funding for their shop, and that they're also looking for cycle path funding. So I've dealt with one person, and I've got another person that I need to pick up with. So I'll try and find out a bit more from them. I get the impression that a lot of the funding is joint, so you provide some yourselves and then you get a bit from the council. So we need to think about how we fund the rest. And I'm hoping the landowners will be helpful.
Because in the photos there are a couple of styles along there.
Yes.
Yes, there
It's
are.
quite interesting.
Difficult with the bike, I can assure you. Done
Yeah,
it many times,
Yes,
but
that's mine, isn't it?
But it does seem a good natural selection of a path.
it is. It's kind of, 70%
Already there.
there, albeit not quite wide enough, and it has styles where you might not want them, but
But also from a point of view of the footpath being joined up,
yeah,
the
exactly.
path should be on the other side of that bridge, shouldn't it?
Yes, you would have thought they would have put it on that side of the bridge.
Well, it's probably because it lines up with the road that comes along the ditch and then
Okay.
goes nowhere, but I think it's better if it's on the other side. Because as you say, the path is not mentioned. That path that was put in X years ago
Mm.
isn't mentioned, but the path that runs along the, yes, that one is
Westbrook.
mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
So they probably have seen that, lined it up with that,
I
and
think,
Well,
but the other one is more, with more use. Isn't it?
the Sustrans chap, because they look at old cycle paths and look to renovate them, I asked if there were any in this area, and he said no. So no old cycle paths, very little in the way of rights of way, footpaths, boats. I can't remember what boat stands for, BOATs. So, I mean, the conclusion you had to make was that there are no non-motorised user routes in and out of this village. And in a way, I'm hoping that will help our arguments, but there's nothing yet, so help. So that's what. So are we happy with that structure in terms of our application? What have we missed? What else could we throw in there to build the argument?
That's right. I think the appendix 1's brilliant. Good picture.
Yeah,
Lines
yeah,
up with
that was William's handiwork.
Just need to type in the
Excellent.
So we go for it?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. As I say, let me just get information about landowners, contact details, anything like that. Please let me know. And we'll see what we can do.
Just the one piece of land. Well, it's the one footpath, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, so
A good starting point with landowners is the coopers. So if you
yes.
speak to them, they'll know.
Oh
You
yes.
don't know.
Good thinking, Batman.
And they
Yeah.
might even be able to help you with introductions and all.
Okay. Yes. Thank you. So yeah. So you're going to help me with.
Alternatively, here's a plan. That bit where the gas pipe runs through, that's highways, isn't it? Presumably, they bought all that land.
Yeah.
A bit in the middle.
Yeah, the bit in the middle
Yeah.
between the two suspected quarries.
They might delight it. They might delight it to do with it.
Oh,
Yeah,
right.
that bit of land.
It's owned by.
Well, presumably highways have bought it all because they're extracting it. And they often they said, they like someone to take it over once they've finished. So I don't know whose land that is. It might be Cooper's land, mightn't it? So there's a couple of-
Highways would know, though, wouldn't they?
Yes.
I think it's
Yeah, so they would probably own it.
Yeah.
They might be. And then you could just pop out somewhere.
So it does sound like Cooper's is a good place to
Yeah,
start.
so it's an alternative.
Yes, it is an alternative. I mean, obviously it
That's
comes
fine.
here onto the
Onto the
Stanton
bridge.
Road.
Which isn't quite nice.
And
You don't want to join that bit there.
You've then got,
But you go with the
Yeah.
underpass, it's
You
fine.
don't want to join that bit.
whereas if you join there,
It's far better.
most
You
of the
miss-
traffic goes down
Yeah,
there. So
yeah.
if it joins there,
Yeah.
straight
Yes,
in.
but you could go two sides of the triangle if they didn't want us to go down the footpath.
That's right.
I'm not suggesting you join the
No.
Hilton Road at that point. But yeah,
I mean, this path does go on past this point, so that's what I did. It does go on beyond that point, but I don't know just where it peters out.
no.
But it may just allow a join up here.
Yeah, as an alternative.
Good.
Excellent.
Great, thank you very much. Anything I've missed? Okay, thank you. You will progress, thank you.
Okay, no, well, I mean, you've put that proposal together, it looks all very sensible and good, well done.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. That's right. Item 4.1 is green open spaces, updates, how to tackle cars on the green and road discussion about footpaths. Yeah, did you want to do this?
I'll just give you a bit of an update what the work has been up to.
Please do.
So we've been a good session of tree planting. We still have some trees left, but we did get through quite a few. We were scuppered a little bit by the weather, but we did get through as much tree work as we wanted to. We did have one session, and we're probably going to have to abandon it now, though, because we're getting, doesn't feel like it, it's getting closer to spring. But anyway, thanks to everybody that helped, and we had the services of Duncan with tree work, with more mowing tree work.
Was that today?
Yeah. Tackling cars on the green. Remember last winter we put some broken rods out.
Yeah.
I haven't been in the last 2 meetings, so I'm a little bit behind the curve on this one. Is that something which is something we would suggest we did again, or?
I suggest we do it on that bit because it's got it chewed up. So you could argue that If you did for March, it'll allow the grass to grow.
Which bit, the
Just in
corner?
front of the pavilion.
Yeah.
That's being severely.
That's bad, isn't it?
Yes. You could even roll it actually. It's a big sort of furrow.
Yeah. Well,
So
it's
that
a
was
few
it.
joyriders who were
Sorry?
touching it.
Yes, people got lost when we go around. There are quite a few tracks on that, so if you did it for a month, that might allow
That would
grass
rest
to.
it, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
Okay.
but I think that's probably all. Otherwise, the only other thing is you have to come and break much closer to the road, which could cause problems if someone drove into it.
Okay. I'll organise that then.
Thank you.
I mean, there are other areas around the village where perhaps, and we've started to talk about this before, certainly along High Street, there's quite a bit of cutting up of the edges there.
There's one very deep, long, wheel mark, isn't there, where it's
Yes.
probably taken 6 inches of soil out.
Yes.
And pushed it.
Yeah.
down the road.
Yeah. So it's quite a few areas around the village, one way and another. It is. I mean, the one in front of the pavilion is fairly straightforward. You can knock some stakes in there. The others are a bit more of a puzzle to know what to do.
It's all down to speed, isn't it? If you pass slowly, the road gets wider, doesn't it? If you're aiming for it at 30 miles per hour and you've got a closing speed of 60, you need yourself a bit more.
I suppose it depends what's oncoming, doesn't it? And if we have got bigger vehicles going through the village, it's
Sure.
different.
If you slow down,
isn't it?
you've got
Yeah.
a bit more sort of
Right.
margin to.
Yeah.
It's interesting what's happened at Sam's Pit is that because the side of the road is eroded, so the grass is, the visual line has gone wider. People just drive on the soil. As an extension of the road.
Yes, you need a firm edge, don't you?
You need a firm
The ramp is not very
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
In the absence of a firm edge, I did just wonder, I don't particularly like them, but if we could persuade County Council to paint a white line down the side of the edge. So visually they sort of hit you a bit, but I wonder whether that, you can see it's there, whereas at the moment people say, oh, it's a soft edge, I'll just nudge it a bit further.
Yeah.
Whereas if you've got something in your mind, there's a hard white edge there, visually hard, then perhaps it just makes them take a bit more notice. Just a thought.
I'm sure it would work. It's just it's the visual impact of it.
I know we did put some logs along one area, and that was mainly to stop people parking there, but could we do that temporarily while the grass grows? You know, where some of those little...
You'd have to make them visible, those short logs.
You could put reflective things on them, could you? You know, just over the winter period while the grass is recovering.
I mean, what would be nice to do is to re-establish the lift of soil there, you know,
Yes.
so it actually goes up,
Yep.
rather than this smooth ramp that it's become. It's really well compared to the road.
Well, we have an interim solution, which is to do what we did last time. At least we could do that, and if we're saying maybe we need a longer term solution, can we play around with some ideas about a longer term solution in due course?
Would highways have any ideas, you know, to recommend? Because they're supposed to maintain.
John's got a comment.
You'll notice the difference of the edges and the verges when it's all dried out, because if you walk along High Street, they're now the holes in the curbs are now filled with mud. When that's dried out and it cleaned out, you're going to have, well, there's not going to be a problem. It's going to look awful down that left-hand side. I know through what I mow. I used to do a width and a half along there, and now it's just about a width. So I've lost 18 inches in sections of it, which has gone into the soil, and I think you'll notice the difference during the summer. Well, you'll see the difference during the summer.
So maybe to repair it and then let it establish itself.
Yeah. maybe.
You'll never get it back to what it was, ever.
No.
Should do a little survey and see. Well, I'm getting facts about it. Yeah, perhaps we could do that.
But the
Go out for
Offords,
a walk.
the Offords have, I don't know if you've been through the Offords, they have these 5-inch posts with the coloured bands at the top, white and red bands, and they put those along their edges in Offords to stop it going, and I think they're about a 5-inch square post that go in the ground.
I think Parish Council has always resisted to put that sort of thing on the edge of the green to preserve its open feel, isn't it? So that's going to be the difficulty there, I think. So we like it to be an open space with nothing on it, or anything like that. And that's, we just have to consider. So let's have a look first of all at the damage and assess what it is and what we think could be done to repair and see what that would involve.
Quite a lot of soil.
Yeah, I would have thought so, yeah. But I know where there is some soil.
Yeah, there's a great big heat outside the village there.
It's about soil just up the road.
Yeah.
Yeah, a bit.
Because I think the water company have done quite a neat repair. There was obviously some work done on the road along Church End, just outside Doreen's house. So that's all been built up and seeded. So, but it must have taken quite a lot of earth to build that up again.
Yeah, I think we'll do a little bit of investigation over the next month or two and see what's there.
Paths. So, just before I've done a bit of more work on self-mining gravel with a lot of help from one of our potential suppliers, which I'll come on to in a minute. I just really wanted to talk a bit about what the expectation is of this piece of land and what, as a parish council, our obligations really should be. It's not a municipal park, it's a common, and as a common it's got a sort of historic and legal distinction from the requirements of a city or a town park. And a good analogy might be is to look at the fells of the Lake District, because it's a very similar setup really in some ways, in that we've got the national park actually own the land, but the sheep farmers, the common right holders, use the land to earn their income on. The National Trust provide it there as open to all commerce, all public, like we do here. And that obviously brings pressures of path erosion and the like. And their stance has always been very considered. They've always approached it on the basis of where you get lots of traffic, where you get lots of erosion, is to come up with quite clever ways of halting erosion, but without spoiling the visual, without it becoming urban. I suppose what I'm saying. So it's done with sensitive materials. Just picking up on what Doreen said about the grey granite. That's so alien to this area. So using materials from locally sourced, this is quite an important thing to do to try and achieve that result. So I'd really like to propose that as a council we sort of start thinking a bit more like that, more like the National Trust, and not like a city council which has to provide certain amenities. It was raised, I think it was an email from Ian Bates, which talks about the Disability Act. I'll just touch on this for a second. I've looked at that, and there is an obligation in the Disability Act to provide easy access for disabled people to get to places of education, employment, their housing, their goods and services like shops, banks, cinemas, etc. But there isn't an obligation for us to provide wheelchair access, a legal obligation, to around the village. And so I just want to flag that because it was raised by Ian.
I'm surprised at that, because access to the church surely would be...
Well, there is access to the church, and there is access to the village hall and the pavilion, so all three are accessible. But the pavilion doesn't qualify. I mean, we would try and do that, I think, just for our moral obligation. But we, just so we all know, there isn't a legal position where we have to provide paths around all of the village. So we only have to make sure we can get to certain service buildings, such as the village hall and church. Anyway, let me go on to South Winding Gravel, if I can. It's turning out to be extremely expensive, both in its purchase cost and also its application cost. We're looking at something like £85 a tonne. We're going to need just under 30 tonnes of it, so that's a lot of money. It has to be put within gravel boards, so we have to put boards in the ground to maintain the edge thickness as it's rolled out, so it's trapped. So we'll be back to something like we have at the moment. And the process of doing it is rollering it, is then rollering with water dripping on roller, and it's a long drawn out process, and it's going to be, I believe, quite expensive. So I would like to propose, having spoken at some length with the suppliers, potential people quoting, is that we go back to the initial proposal, which is to repair and rebuild up the stone harp or layer, which is bound, that does bind to it, and then put a very thin top dressing of a pea gravel. So it's not deep enough where a tyre will go into it, but it will just visually smooth everything. And it will be contained by the path surface being lower than the surrounding grass surface, so it will be gently rolling in. Now, this is a path that will need maintaining. We probably need to put another layer of pea gravel on it every now and then, but it will, I think, be a good solution.
And it gets rid of the trip hazards.
It gets rid of the trip hazards, and it will be visually nicer. And yeah,
it's what we used to do as well. It's what we've done before when we had the parish partnership, which was run with Cambridgeshire County Council, wasn't it? And they were happy with that. So I get it.
Yes, because I know that people have expressed concerns about gravel, that it
doesn't make it absolutely.
It's a
Yeah.
bad
Pea gravel,
big.
you don't need to
We're talking about
half an inch, well,
not even that.
Yeah,
It's
which
just-
would be
it's
much
just
more
a dusting
acceptable
blinding.
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah.
And that will be also bed into the
Yeah.
dust.
I think the parishioners I've talked to that have concerns about the width of the path and
Before we go on to which, can I just
Yes.
deal with this
Oh,
material?
sorry.
I just want to make sure we're sort of in agreement. I've asked chaps to re-quote now 3 times, so I'd like to go away from this meeting knowing exactly what we're doing. And because they've been very good, providing lots of information.
And how much would it cost per square metre to go back to the pea gravel then?
It's the original quote, not me there, Sharon, because I haven't got the original
I'm
quote.
sorry, I didn't.
But it was what,
Yeah, I can't remember. But it's
It
not,
was much
we're not,
cheaper, wasn't
we're
it?
not being
Yeah.
asked to vote on the deal.
Right,
no,
okay.
no.
So you will have the full information with regards to costing and all that when, so what Kieran wants to do is he wants to get the sentiment to be able to go back and then get the finalised quotes.
Right. Sounds good to me.
No.
Yeah, I think it'll look in keeping, won't it? So, and as long as I think that, as long as you can wheel a pushchair or a wheelchair through it, then, or a bike, you know, child can ride a bicycle on it, then.
You've just reminded me that occasionally we've had people in recent times come around saying, I've got some stone, whatever, spoil from the A14 work. Do you want to buy some of it? Yeah.
And you believe them?
No, but no, of course not. But nevertheless, there will be stuff from the construction of A14, and I'm conscious, having done it ourselves, that crushed up limestone for a path makes it actually quite a solid path. I know this is not a limestone area, but you know, because it gets kind of embedded, it looks quite neutral in the air.
Well, we've got a lot of granite in the ground already, which is obviously up there. I'll ask. I don't know how easily these materials will mix, but because a lot of this part will just be repairs and widening of the
existing
parts.
With a top dressing.
Yeah. So maybe they want to continue using the whatever it was. The granite.
Crushed granite.
Fresh granite.
Yeah.
Okay, so
As the base.
Unless it's, you get lots and lots of it and it's really, really free.
yeah,
Maybe we can never change it, and it blends in fine. Then
I just thought because the A14 is involving so much material, for having ton loads of this and that.
What was it they had?
Concrete,
They had concrete that they were crushing up and using as aggregate. From something they took down on the A1, a bridge they took down
Oh,
on
yeah.
the A1.
But they also offer you wet concrete, don't they, for overproduction. Can I suggest that we get some pea gravel and that we put it on a section of path? Because one of the things that can sometimes happen is the gravel goes down and brings up the granite again.
right.
So we could just do a little area, couldn't we? Small area.
Just a small.
Yeah. Because sometimes the big stuff comes up because the small stuff goes down and pushes it up. So it'd be a shame if we've done meters of it and that's a little problem. Just chuck it out.
Rather than do that, should we do renew the base layer and then put the bomb? There's a short bit.
Whatever.
Do that as if everything
Yeah,
comes.
Yeah, yes. That's quite,
That was a test area.
Do we know if there is much difference between the lower strata and what we use down there in terms of the permeability of them? Because obviously one of the things we've got here is clay soil underneath, so we want something that does drain down through relatively easily.
There's no water on the paths at the moment.
Yes. That's important where it's trying.
In one or two places, yeah.
In one or two places.
Just thinking
We
it's
do
doing
that.
that.
So we don't have it.
Understood to potentially do, it's been spoken about, is for the slight camber on paths. So
Yes.
and you've got grass edges, so which is hopefully drained away.
Yeah,
I'll check.
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. So just a thought.
So after it, I wasn't here last month. So,
Yeah, I was just going to say, I've had quite a few residents, I suppose because the church end path is so narrowed at the moment. There's some concerns about the proposed width of if we replace or repair the paths for wheelchair users. So, and I know, I should just explain the Disability Act doesn't cover that. I did look up the Cambridgeshire Design Guide for Streets and Public Places, which recommends the minimum width is 1.5 metres in footways, and residential streets, which I presume is the sort of pavemented streets, that has a footpath of 2 metres. But, and I'm not suggesting we have 2 metre wide paths, but I just think perhaps in the, could we perhaps look at the some of the footpaths that are regularly used, i.e. from church end, so it's mainly along to the church, the village hall, and maybe along this part to the pavilion, which are regular routes for most villagers, and maybe there are other regular areas where people in the summer especially would want to bring elderly people out in wheelchairs, and I met a lady with a child in one of these off-road buggies, and she said she's had to buy it especially for the paths around Hilton because and it's got a wide wheelbase, and it's one of these big wheeled prams, because her normal pram is just its paths are too narrow. So I'm just a bit concerned that some wheelchairs are 900 wide base, so it just, and I know there is probably vehicle access round to the church from Church Lane, but if you were coming, if you were walking, you wouldn't be able to walk up to the church if the path is sort of, especially if we're reinstating the edges at 700. So I was just.
Well, we're not going there. We're not reinstating the edges.
No. If we, sorry, if we're reinstating the path at 700, you're going to end up ploughing into the grass verges either side. Plus, there's a lot of dog walkers in the village that I speak to as well, who who want to walk side by side, and people walking around the village want to walk side by side to chat, and actually you have to walk one behind the other, and at the moment, well, the paths originally were 1 metre wide, where you can walk side by side, weren't they? So
I think those 900 step-wise. Is optional.
No, I budgeted them the 900.
And then
But also you
Where
have
the board still exists, they're 900.
Also, there's no harm in walking on the grass. You're allowed to walk on the grass. And if you wanted to walk side by side, you would get
so then the grass
be very wide.
right.
It would be very wide if you wanted to walk side by side. A metre isn't enough to walk side by side.
But haven't you seen the path from the Lich Gate down to the village hall? That path is totally eroded to about 4, 5
And
foot
that's
wide.
there's a different reason for that, isn't it? That's because all the limbs are falling on that one.
No.
And people walk around that
Oh,
one.
come on, no.
That's not right.
No,
Because the path is flooded so badly with all the leaf fall, people don't know where the edge of the path is, and they're walking side by side, which is wider than the path is. So they're just eroding it.
There's another issue there, and that is the hornbeams which were there, when there's enough light through, so the grass doesn't grow. And so that's why it's eroded so easily. We did take one of the hornbeams out just before Christmas to let a bit more light in there.
And the other will follow.
And the other one probably,
Well, it's just some feedback from parishioners.
You need to be really careful with this one, because if this village is quite unique, and the land the Parish Council is responsible for is very unique, and but it could very quickly be eroded into something much more urban, and that would be a shame, because we'd never get back again. So dog walkers, you have to buy a pair of Wellingtons to walk dogs around Hilton in the winter, surely.
Oh, yeah, you
so
do,
to provide
but I'm
paths where
saying-
people don't need to do that seems to be quite a big thing to do.
There were never problems about the widths when those wooden boardings were put in. No one ever complained that they were too narrow.
They were. I'm sorry, they were too narrow.
Even
I cannot walk with
I
it
think, I agree. I
side
think
by
the
side.
boarding's not good.
That's what I said the first time they were laid.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm interrupting
No,
you.
carry on.
Yeah,
But the moment they were laid, I came and said to the and we're going back 8, 9, 10 years, I don't know how long. I said the paths are just too narrow, and I kept on saying
when those boards were put up?
no, they weren't.
Were they
Willie,
wider than that?
when Ian and I tried, you haven't, with all due respect, you haven't got the paths by your cottage, which
No,
is
just
lovely.
mud.
I know, but
Yeah.
you know,
Trees.
I'm not worried about. Yes, I've got Wellingtons for
Yeah.
winter, and I've got Torch for the dark, I'm not worried about that. I just want to be able to walk on a path side by side with my friends or with my husband. And if someone's pushing a wheelchair, they've probably got another companion by their side. I'm not saying that they need to look urban in any way. I don't want that. I just want it to look like a lovely meandering country path, but wide enough for two people to walk side by side. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah.
Certainly I know there was a time a few weeks ago, John and I were talking between here and the village hall, and there was a couple of residents came by, and we also briefly spoke to somebody going through with a pram. And the consensus of those people we spoke to was that they didn't want to be any narrower than is currently in place. So that was their opinion.
Excuse me, Doreen is right. I mean, it can easily still look rural, but be a little wider. It's only a small compromise, isn't it? We're not talking about as much as 18 inches, even a foot. It's quite a narrow path, but it can be rural rather than urban.
When you take the boardings out at the side, you're going to make the paths wider anyway, because there's no way they're going to be brought out and left at the same width as what the path is at the moment in time. There's going to be at least another 3 inches on each side, which will make it just over a metre.
Yeah.
Right? But you talk about it looking urban. The reason why it looks urban is because all the paths are straight. Yes. Right? If the paths have got a bit of a bend in them, then it would look more meandering through a village.
Yeah. I suppose the other option is to remove the path completely and make them like they are over the green.
I mean, the one that runs in front of the pavilion, that could go completely. I mean, that's closely mown grass. It's it continues on the other side of the road as a grass path.
Yeah. That would give it a real feel, wouldn't it?
But then are we listening to the parishioners then, you know, and actually this village and the green is for people to walk around and enjoy, and people don't want to be wearing wellies in the summer and avoiding stepping in, you know, dog mess or whatever, because people unfortunately don't always pick up. And or mud or, you know, a wet patch or whatever, and I just think it's fine if you want to go for, you know, an off-road walk around the wilderness or where there isn't many, you know, proper paths. You know, lots of people do that.
What describe proper?
Well, a defined path with a, you know, a surface. So if you've got a wheelchair or a pram, then, you know, I think it's, yeah, that's fine. If I'm not sort of saying dog walkers will be just walking around the village, but what I'm saying is there's a lot of villagers who go for walks during the day, and you see them walking one behind the other, and it just is very difficult to turn around and have a conversation when you're going out to enjoy the village and you're walking, you know, in a line. And actually, you know, if you have more than...
There aren't paths all around the village. If you want to walk around the village, you've got to, or around the green, you've got to do most of it on grass.
I mean, there is I think it's a good point there, Peter, that if you have a delineated path, people try to stick to it. If there isn't a path, and you're heading over there, then you walk across the grass.
But then you'll get wheelchair users and pushchair users just going on the road then.
But if you cut your paths just one cut lower,
Exactly.
right,
Exactly.
you can define a path, and there people, and then you can have it whatever width you want it, but it's still grass.
Whether it's grass or not, for me, seems less of a question than if it's firm enough, so that if I have a pram or a wheelchair, if I go over it, it doesn't, you know, get lumps and bumps and whatever. So it's rollered and it's grass and it's as wide as you like, in a way. Then that might be a...
Peter, could I just say something? As somebody has to use a wheelchair. It's not... I think it probably causes a lot more damage if you can't stick to a designated path. It's not easy to push it It's not easy to propel it, and if you have got a path,
It
you
makes
could
life
probably
easier.
get a lot less damage to the grass. And the grass areas, obviously, you can't use anyway. But if there is a designated path, and if perhaps it was a metre wide, then I think you'd probably get a lot less damage to the grass areas, which I think is what everybody tries to avoid anyway.
Yeah, that was just a throw it out as a different comparison that you could look at, because there seemed a lot of fixed debate about width of paths. At the moment they're 900 wide.
Well,
Ish.
A
Lot less than
they were,
Yeah.
yes.
They were.
But they were
Yes, they
originally
were
900 wide, one assumes. I don't know, I haven't been out on a tape measure. Perhaps I'll go out for a little tape measure walk around.
I found one that's 700,
Yeah.
but where the boards exist, which is not that many places, they measure 900. There's one just by the lamppost next to the pavilion, which goes down to 700. I don't know why.
Because it goes round.
You know where it goes around that high
Yeah.
point?
And by the pavilion, by the village hall, it's a metre and a bit.
Because you see the bridges are a metre wide, aren't they? I don't know how wide they are. So like when you're coming out of the church, the route, that path seems to follow the width of the bridge.
Yes. The bridges were renewed about 20 years ago, and they were all made a little wider, with the objective of allowing wheelchair access. There are some, I think, that are still a little narrower than that. For example, the one between Worms and the football pitch. I think it's
Yes, that's
slightly narrower.
yeah.
Yeah.
Just because I know this is dragging on,
This is just
and it's dragging on and it's dragging on, but can we?
well. Let's decide what we want
Yeah.
to do. I mean, are we saying that the paths that are at the moment gravel paths that we want two people to be able to walk side by side?
Yeah.
In which case we're looking at 1.5 metres.
We don't want one.
We don't want that.
No.
Is
I'd be
there-
okay with 1 metre. 900 outdoors, I'd be okay with 1 metre.
Is there another way of
What's
doing
that?
that, which in a sense is a bit of both?
Is that a metre?
So you have a small number of paths that are big enough for
That's amazing.
2 people, but most of them are not. It's a bit embarrassing. It's neat.
But no, but what's that? If you made it a metre 10, it would make all the difference.
If you hold her arm, Margaret, it'll be okay.
Some people are wider.
That's a requirement.
So,
But I mean, if you did wider paths on some, but actually had most of them
Well, that's
a
what
little bit
I
narrower.
agree with. I think the frequently used paths could maybe be a metre wide, or for people to walk side by side that are, it's people like, people at Orchard WI or an event in the village hall use these paths an awful lot.
I think there's a strong argument for doing it between the village hall and the church.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe some of the other paths which aren't as frequently used, could be 900. But
to be discriminated against and made smaller.
I personally would like them all the same width, but if that's not.
John, you've got your hand up.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask one more question? Where does the 800 metres come from
800 metres.
that was first discussed?
800 metres.
Is that the
Millimetres.
length of all the paths? or
Centimetres,
something?
What, the width of the path?
No,
I don't know.
I think
800 metres, John?
Does that include the other side of Gravely Way? And
I think it
Yes,
must have included the one in Gravely Way.
it's,
And that
it's
is-
390 metres from Sarah Partridge's to the just past the village hall.
And we dropped the Gravely Way one after it was repaired by Cambridgeshire County Council. So the 800 would have been revised.
What, in front of the old George?
No. further out towards the end of the drift.
That's
Well,
highway.
that's already been done, hasn't it?
Yeah, so was originally in our plan but was dropped.
So what's in the plan now is
So how many metres is
from
in your
Sarah
plan now?
Marsh's up to, I can't tell you the metres,
Well, it's 390 yards,
that's to the village hall,
yeah.
and then
No,
to,
to the pavilion,
okay.
past the pavilion,
And then we've got,
and including the piece that goes right by the, over the bridge.
and then we've got High Street added into that as well. Just takes you all
Well,
the way
that-
down
that
to
is very
Reed's
fine.
house.
Right. So we're going to try and wrap this bit of the discussion up this evening with, I think, do a width survey and present a diagram of the paths around the bridge where we're going to go against a proposal with basis, because there are more discussions to be had about this before we finalise. I know.
Can we not, well, why don't we just say, if Graham's happy with the meter, you'd be happy with the meter, why don't we just go for the meter and then we can,
Yeah.
and if it's not right,
It'll certainly be better than what we have.
And I think it can't be variable. I think it can be reason in some places.
That's what I would like to know before the council agrees it, what bits will be a meter and what bits won't be a meter.
That'd be difficult to quote for though, something that's different.
well, how do we move on, Peter? Because,
Yeah.
yes, I mean, I can say, you know what, I'd like to go over.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
more, but,
Yeah.
but if we are going, I mean, can we not agree now what widths we're going for? And then I can
We're
work
going
it out.
to recommend. What we're going to go for, what we're going to recommend. Because I believe that in all this, we need a discussion with the common concept. Because if you're proposing widening paths to a metre, discussion needs to be held with that party as well. To make sure that they're happy that those paths are widened.
Well, we'd do that as a matter of course anyway, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
But we can't fix them until we know what we agree.
So you need a proposal,
Yeah.
for sure.
Stick a proposal in.
Right. A metre between the church gate and the village hall, and then 900 on the others.
We're not, I mean, from church end, from Sarah's house.
That's
Is
already
that
quite a
part
small
is,
path, that one.
it's very well used though. That's the thing. There are a lot of people who walk from that estate up there along to the church.
Anybody else got another proposal?
I have my recommendation,
What's that one?
which is that we go and do a full measuring and bring it back.
But that tells you what is, it doesn't tell you what.
I'd like to
So
see.
the
Because at the
preference
moment,
or
I'd
idea.
like to have a go.
the carpet that's in from the Sharon's house, it's probably only about that wide, isn't it?
It's very overgrown. I mean, it's overgrown by about, the same width either side because the edging is completely buried. Isn't it?
Oh, here's another proposal. Why don't we do that stretch you've just identified from the church to the village hall, and in a sense see how it's received, and then we can at a later date do another stretch and another stretch until we're all happy bunnies. It's going to cost
Can
us
do that.
more.
It'll cost more.
Will it? Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Because you've got people to come back in on the applications, whereas
Originally, you had it broken into zones,
Yeah.
do just that, and then,
Okay.
I think the one meter would be good though, because you could say that you are going between various facilities, aren't you? And it's 900 elsewhere, and they say, at the moment, it's down to the bit, isn't it? 900 will back to where it was.
was that path ever 900? Up there,
Well,
beyond where you mentioned, was it up the way up to Sarah Parsons? Was that ever 900?
I don't remember it
Yes.
being that wide.
I don't recall. My guess will be not. I don't know for sure.
So you'd be proposing to widen that to 900?
Yeah. When I first came to the village, the paths were just where the grass is worn through and the gravel's naturally in the soil, so it just bubbled to the top, and they look fantastic.
They do.
The thing
Bit
is,
like when you come down Gravely Way,
Good.
there's a little pathway which is ideal, isn't it? Because it's almost like the gravel's going through the grass.
the kind of generation in the village has changed, hasn't it? You know, we have got more people who maybe have, you know, walking aids or, well, speaking from experience because I take my mum in a wheelchair. So it's just, you know, and people now have scooters, don't they? Motorised scooters, whereas, you know, 10, 20 years ago nobody ever had a motorised scooter.
But in those days, though, it wasn't an issue because there was no wooden edges. You weren't confined to a particular route or whatever. The paths were mown, and you know, the width could be whatever it needed to be. You weren't constrained by the path.
But it does sound to me that, like, until we created a metered path without the edges and see how well it works, we don't know what's going to be acceptable, because at the moment we're theorising and getting a bit stuck. So it does seem to me that if we did what you suggested, that one stretch metre wide and the other's 900, then in time, if the conclusion was, well, 900 ain't enough, at least we've got 900, and it's not such a big task to make it another 10 centimetres wider next time round. Is that not better than
That's going to be a long time.
don't know?
And you keep one going across the front of the mains. And the little one going across the green, the green.
Underneath the Turkish edge.
Yeah, just as you go across the bridge and across that.
Also, you can buy the mates.
Opposite the mains, you know, when you go.
900, yeah.
Put the path past the playground.
That's
And wide.
You would have thought that.
I don't recall that ever being
Don't think so.
worked on by the Parish Council.
That's got really some
It's
case,
just
a good
fruitful.
idea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's fine.
All right. I'm advised otherwise.
Thank you. Footpath. How wide is it?
It's that's
So
round and a
nice.
half.
That's lovely because you can walk side by side.
Peter Burton laid that, did he not, Ian?
Which one, sorry?
The one by the play area?
I say I was unaware of it being worked upon, John, so
I think Peter Burton laid that.
your knowledge is better than me on that.
Bring it back.
Apologies.
Can I say something again? Strikes me that this is the crucial one here between the village hall and the church. That's the one that gets major traffic. That one is already very flat, so it's less of a problem. That's like the motorway, that's like the footpath, if you like. So if you get the width of that right, at least you've got people able to walk side by side with their motorised buggies and everything. It's the width is crucial, but you can still keep it rural. I'm the first one to think rural. You know, I'd sooner have fewer street lights, and we use torches because that's the country way. But that, if you get that bit right, you can worry about the rest later.
Economies of scale. Yeah.
If we go away again and come back again, I don't know what we're going to learn that's going to change the situation.
Okay.
Because
You've still got the same question.
you know, the same argument's going to still be valid.
Well, I was thinking about economies of scale of getting the work done. In terms of if you just concentrated on that piece there, then your cost for doing the rest would go up because you have to get your workman back in to do it on another day.
I think you've got a general sort of mumbling that you might get a 900 1 metre. 900 from the nodding heads. Sharon might say that there's
Okay.
I prefer a meter. but
if you're,
it's
if
just-
you're, if the Green Working Party is happy with meeting publicly.
What you want to propose? You would like to propose that the strip there, the path there between the church and the village hall is 1 metre wide, and the rest 900. There's the proposal.
I'll second it.
Okay. All those in favour? Against? Against. 1 against. Thank you. Anything else on the green open spaces? So you, and sorry, Kieran, you'll get quotes and you'll come back to us with costings. Just when
Got some bins here as well.
talks
Some bins.
I don't think we should hold
So anything else in green open spaces updates? Kieran? Ian? Anything else?
Not that I can recall. At this stage.
Thank you for the work that was done today and the part that was done before.
lovely today, and sunshine.
Shame it's not on the same. Joe's got it. Right. Item 4.2 on the agenda is pavilion open meeting. Go to 12.
Do you want me to?
What day is it on?
It's the 13th, I
Tuesday
did
the
change it,
13th.
send out
Yeah.
the agenda.
Okay.
So what I've made some posters to put around the village and on the website. So we've had several meetings with the subcommittee of the Parish Council.
The working group.
Sorry,
You
the
have a
working
working group, and if I remember rightly, in response to Margaret's earlier question, the working group was asked whether it wished to open up its membership to other members, and it said no, it was happy with the membership that it had.
Well, actually, Peter,
No, sorry.
can I just respond? I'm not entirely sure what I was accused of.
Yeah.
We have invited people to come on to these. We've had somebody from the Town Trust and we've
Yeah.
had somebody from the Creek Club.
Yeah.
So it's not a Parish Council.
No, that's what I was
Working
saying.
group.
Yeah.
So we've invited people in
Yes.
when we've needed a particular.
Yeah. And those people who were on that working group were asked whether they wanted to expand membership again, and they said no, they were happy with the number of people that were on it.
That's right.
So that's in response to Margaret's
Yeah.
comment.
I think some of the reasons behind that were if we had a much bigger working group, you get quite a lot of diverse sort of conversations, and we've really got to move on with it because, I mean, to answer one of the points, obviously this has been going on for some time. There have been previous plans, but we've had discussions around amalgamating the previous plans and the current plans because part of the recommendation from Sport England is that we have 2 separate changing room areas, and that's seemed vital. Plus, actually, what we've developed is a parish council office within the pavilion. So what we wanted to do was have an open meeting to invite residents of the village or anyone that wanted to come along and have a look to actually see what the proposal would be. I take your point as well about, people in the village taking ownership. However, the problem we've got is health and safety. We can't, we've discussed it at length. We as a parish council can't take responsibility for the renovation and the build of this. We're going to need a site manager or to appoint a builder because there's all sorts of insurance, there's issues with, safety, if a piece of work wasn't done correctly, it can affect the next stage. And so it's quite a complicated process. And yes, I think towards the end, when the builders have done the main structure, there will be, hopefully, time when we can say, well, actually, does anyone in the village want to kind of make curtains or cushions, or, that's just plucked out there. Yes, but as far as people, I'm not saying that, that we will have curtains and cushions, but I'm just saying, there will be things to do, but unfortunately we can't, from an insurance point of view.
The reason we're doing this evening on the 13th is exactly to try and get the village and engage them into the project. But as you say, we can't just have everybody turning up with a hammer and nail to do stuff, because it would be chaotic. And
it seems to me that one of the ways by which we can engage the village more fully is in the sense when it gets to the point of how best do we use it, or how many multiple uses can we make of it. Because in the kind of volunteers group, one of the things we're saying is we'll meet with you when it's at a sensible point in order to say, well, what kind of things do need doing, or what kind of activities do we want to encourage. Let's see if there are people in the village that want to try it out, test it out, etc. So I do see.
And there's one overriding caveat to all of that, isn't there? That anything that happens in there is not in competition with business that should be coming.
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely no way at all. We've said that all the way through. We'll keep reminding you as you go through this that it is not a site for a meeting, because this is where you have meetings. This is the parish. This is the village hall that we promote for that type of activity.
This was said at the very beginning when Donna was chairman of the village hall committee, and I was leading the group considering what to do with the pavilion, that it was emphatically not going to be in competition with, but working alongside and cooperating constantly with between the two buildings, and that was an absolute crux of the beginning.
I mean, it will have very much a focus on sport. The local cycling group use through here as a cycle route, and they're very keen, if there was a sort of, the pavilion was usable as a, stop-off point, and of course the cricket club and the football. And really just to encourage more sport. So Sport England have fed back to us that our application would have got through had we, slightly changed the layout. So with their comments, we're going to reapply. However, their advice was for us to get full planning permission, which Kieran's been working hard on to get. So we got the pre-application went in, didn't it? And we've got a
successful
pen queue.
Yeah. So now, before we do the full plan application, we want to open up and get opinions from the village before we went too far.
So this is next Tuesday?
Yeah. So it's next Tuesday in Village Hall, and then we'll have the plans on the. I mean, they are on.
They have been on the website for 18 months or so. Yeah.
We've made some slight adjustments, but obviously everybody might have slightly personal views on what should be there and what shouldn't be there, but the focus is on it being a sports pavilion for use by various sporting clubs and groups. So with the remit for office, Parish Council in this space. So hopefully that will answer some. And
does there need to be a flyer going round, or is it more?
Well, I've put posters on all the
notices out to the database everybody does.
Yes.
So So, no, I think if
Good
people
test,
are
yeah.
interested,
Thank you.
they'll come.
Be a good test.
Yeah.
I'll be website on your database. Good. Well, I hope the meeting
So-
goes well.
I think that's where we're at now. And
What
then,
time is it?
7 o'clock, and then after next Tuesday we'll proceed with the full planning application, and then proceed with the repeat. And as far as the costs, it's provisional costs that we've envisaged so far and got provisional quotes for that type of building work. I mean, it's very difficult to say down to the last, door lock and window catch to how much everything is going to cost.
We used the builder's guide for 2017, which suggested typical build costs per square foot for particular buildings, and we pulled all the numbers from that. And until we've got something live with detailed drawings to go to and get quote, we're not really going to know, so there's a very much figure in there.
Yeah, fair enough. So, so hopefully we'll have more to update on the next Parish Council meeting, but apologies it's just taking so long, but the whole process of planning is very slow.
One thing you might like to do following the meeting, before consider any views.
Yeah, before the full planning application.
Yes.
Yeah.
Taken forward. Yeah?
Yeah.
Good. Thank you very much. And as I've said, I hope the meeting goes well. Okay, item 4.3, GDPR. Further information. Joe kindly emailed you all a 55-slide presentation.
Got the gist.
Data Protection Act. Yes.
Yes, it has
This
so
follows-
many angles.
Follows some
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just obviously as we get nearer to the date, we just want to kind of really sort of let councillors know what they need to be doing with regards to data protection officer and that sort of thing. It's still and then the second bit is because I've got two large filing cabinets, neither of them are lockable, and I don't keep them in right where I work. I'd like to be able to buy a small lockable filing cabinet because I want to keep everything locked. Details, so just to agree that as well.
And in mind for screen
Yes.
questioning, we have £45.83 plus VAT or £39.99 plus VAT.
Just to get a general idea, it won't be more than
80
that, but I just want to check on obviously the...
80 to £90 for two cabinets.
No, I only want one cabinet,
Oh, you
but I
want
just gave you an example of
sorry.
two different prices.
That's to lock for stuff that needs locking.
Yeah, or everything will need locking away, so that I'm using sort of daily.
And then minute books and things like that, will they need locking away as
Yeah.
well? And will that give you enough space?
No, I hope, well actually, I need to double check that because they're behind a locked door, so I'm hoping that I won't have to then, we don't have to replace those as well, so I don't think, well I've certainly got the keys to the original file, so I'll double check that.
Yeah, because we need to make sure that we have the right amount of lockable storage. Yeah.
I'll see if I've got your spirit.
Don't underestimate.
Yes, we seem to have.
Don't underestimate.
Yeah, don't underestimate.
No.
That's it.
Because the ones you have at the moment are so high.
Yeah, yeah.
Full drawer. Three or four drawer.
I can't
Yeah.
remember. Yeah,
And you've got two of those.
yeah.
So do you need a similar?
Presumably that's got old stuff that was on paper.
Well, I think a lot of it if I can transfer some of the stuff that I've got now into there, it's just what I'm using day to day that I want to be able to lock away.
Yeah. All right.
There's a magic scanning machine where you can take every bit of paper, scan it, and it will organise on your computer. Or if you've got a heading or whatever, it will organise it for you. Magic. Very clever.
Can you send us the link, Phil?
I'll have to find it. Oh, my stepson uses it all the time. He keeps no paper whatsoever. Everything gets scanned, and it, as it scans it, it automatically allocates it.
How much is that?
I don't know.
So that you're going to find out a little bit more information, but I don't think as the council we would object to buying you lockable or the lockable filing cabinet. So, but it's just knowing that you've got the right.
Yeah.
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 Hmm.
Okay. So
Well,
in principle, that's fine.
Yeah.
Do you think that LCC will give us a summary? Because presumably there will be something that affects all councillors.
Yeah. Well, I think there's bits going through all the time. So I'm just waiting to sort of get finalised details of exactly what's going through and how it will affect us.
As sort of May, is it? Did I get that?
Yeah.
So we've got a bit of time to sort of read this, and hopefully someone will give us a summary as to how it specifically affects individuals.
Yeah. Well, I know, like, just from the course I did, like, you know, if you, for instance, if a parishioner emails you
Yes.
asking you to do something, you shouldn't just forward that email to someone because
It's
it'll
got
have their
their
IP
details
address
in
and stuff in it, so you'll do lots of copying and pasting and things like that. So you have to be quite careful. And if you've got any old files with personal details on, they need to be locked away or find their way back to me.
Okay.
Trust
a
on the
wonderful thing.
website element of this. Because our website, we have a call for an invitation for people to join our database, and therefore we do store personal information. We have a page of descriptions about how we hold that data, what we do with it, what we're not going to do with it. It's pretty straightforward because we're not holding any sensitive information. We're not selling anybody anything, credit card information, anything like that. So it's pretty straightforward. And there is quite a lot of helpful guidelines out there as to how you do it. Suggest if you could have a read of the page that's on the website. I'll put it up there. It's on, when you go to contacts, the page, there's an introduction saying please join our database. But this is covered by the new regulations. Learn more, hit that button, and you get it all. And it's a dry read, but it's...
What I was going to suggest, because I think some people before that went on the website when we were just initially asking for the contact details, that information wasn't on there. So I think, just as a precaution, maybe the database that I currently hold, I'll send an email to that database, just reiterating.
There are some people saying that they don't put it on the database until this is in place. So they probably need contacting again.
Well, I think I might just, as a blanket email, send something to everyone just to, so they've got all the details, and we've covered everybody that way. So it wasn't, but yes, obviously anybody signing up now will see that on the website.
And I have put this page by somebody who designs websites who's immersed in it at the moment. They said it's pretty much standard stuff, so hopefully we're covered.
Thank you. Okay. So do take the time to read the presentation, please. Take us time. Okay, so item 5.1 on the agenda, provided we're finished 4.3. Yeah? All done on 4.3?
We have to approve spend or not?
No, because we don't know exactly
Oh, okay.
how much she wants. So we could approve two up to 90.
Well, can we approve just one that I can have in my office?
I thought we ought to
Yeah. I propose Joe
purchase.
up to a price of £45.83 plus VAT, of which we'll get the VAT back. Will you second it? And all those in favour?
Yeah.
Thank you. And if you need money, I'll come back.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, all done on that one then? Thank you, Graham, because I just thought I'd go back around in a circle. Item 5.1, Parish Council meetings in April and May, change of date due to bank holidays, Easter Monday, May bank holiday.
Yes, although the May date, because we had an election, we have to hold the annual Parish Council meeting within between 4 and 14 days following the election. So the Monday after that, I don't know if that includes weekends, that's the only thing. So I need to, like, if it does include the weekend, we're fine, we can hold it on that Tuesday rather. If it doesn't include the weekend, the May meeting we probably will have to hold a bit later.
That would suit me, because I won't be around on that day.
So, at the moment, so for April, you're suggesting Tuesday the something like that. Tuesday the 3rd.
Tuesday, yeah.
So we'll go for a voting thing on this, but we'll propose that the April meeting, rather than being held on the first Monday of the month, is held on the Tuesday the 3rd of April.
So,
thank you. In favour? Yeah.
Apologies, I won't be able to do this.
And then the May date, it would have been Monday the 7th of May, and the election is on Thursday the 3rd of May. So ideally Tuesday the 8th is the one, isn't it?
Yeah, if the it says it has to be held 4 days after the election, so that would be the 4th day if we
But it doesn't,
can.
it won't include, it will be business day, won't it?
So in that case, we will have to
Have it on the
have it.
Tuesday the 8th. And if you just want to check with HDC.
Tuesday the 8th is
won't work.
no, because that's including the weekend,
It's 4 days.
but that's
Thursday
Saturday,
won't count,
Sunday,
It'll be Friday.
Yeah.
Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
Saturday, Sunday won't
The
count.
bank holidays and Sundays don't count.
Yeah, so
Yes.
that won't be 4 days after then.
Within 4 days after.
No, between 4 and 14 days.
Oh,
after.
between 4 and 4. Sorry, I thought.
Yes.
Okay, well,
Not the following week.
choose another day.
Next, the following week, on the
15? Oh no, 14? No.
It's my daughter's birthday, so I'm trying to do the and actually Village Hall is often not available on a Monday, so Tuesday would probably be better. We could do the 15th.
15. So you would like that meeting to be on the 15th. Can you just check the date with
Yeah,
HDC,
yeah.
the returning officer, that that is fine,
Yeah,
please? Because we wouldn't like to fall
that should be
foul.
within the 14, that is
It would
within
be
14 days,
the
though, isn't
14
it? So,
days. But just check,
yeah.
please, because we wouldn't want to be picked up. So bring that one to the April meeting. Yeah?
Yeah.
And then there is an election this year. HDC or CCC decided that all district and parish councils will be held on the same day, so they are all going to happen on Thursday the 3rd of May, and there is a timetable of dates of which starts on the 19th of March, which is a publication of a notice of election, which they normally supply,
Yeah, I haven't had it yet. I've had the nomination papers.
with a nomination date for the 6th of April. And then postal votes by, oh no, application to have postal vote 18th of April, and then an election around the 3rd of May. So, yeah, we'll put that up.
Yeah, the notice will go
Timetable,
up on
yeah.
Monday the 19th.
Yeah, and that normally has their timetable of the dates on it.
Yeah.
HDC are normally quite good at supplying that sort of thing. The next item on the agenda is winter discuss. Oh, so there are more dates on there, but that's all that will go up.
Well, Whitting, it was missed this year. I think an email did come through, but it was when I was on holiday, so I completely missed the email. And it wasn't really, unfortunately, it's one of those things that's not on your mind until it happens. So it wasn't until obviously it became an issue that we realised that we weren't organised this year for the winter gritting, so it's really just to, I don't know if there's some way of us reminding ourselves at some point. I mean, I assume we will get emails again, but each year to...
Why do we have to wait for emails?
Well, we don't, but it's just a reminder. It's obviously it's keeping that in our mind that we need to be organised for it.
And this is for gritting pavements rather than roads?
Well, I think, well, actually...
It's pavements, isn't it?
Yes,
It's the
pavement.
thing that the local council
Yeah.
passed out to parishes
It's
a
gritting.
long time ago, a few years ago now.
But it's even like because the bit around Park Farm wasn't gritted this year, was there? So it's kind of reminding them of the areas as well that need gritting.
Well, that's a HDC decision on what roads. They cut down the percentage of roads that they were going to grit through the county.
And that's a particular area that does need doing, so it's just... I think we should remind them to do that.
Perhaps we could write to highlight that part, given that there is water which will turn to us.
So, Joe, how does it work? Do they email to see if villages
Well,
want to?
yeah, there's a volunteer list. So I know Anne and Andy have been involved previously. I don't know that when they provided some equipment a few years ago.
Well, there's equipment provided if you wanted, or you can use your own, whichever. But I guess that it did occur to me actually when this first started, and I thought, oh, should I just automatically run out there and do it? And I thought I should have done. But I was kind of waiting for the trigger. And in hindsight, I think to myself that was really silly. You could have just gone out and gritted off in the park. Yes.
I suppose.
Do you know what time of year the email comes through?
Well, it was when I was on holiday, so in July.
So you need to put a note in July to look out for this, so they can bring it to Parish Council at that time, to because there is a process that they go through, if I remember rightly, to have volunteers register.
Yeah.
And then they'll advise a list of those volunteers that are registered.
I suggest that we also perhaps just include in the, say, November, December, January Parish Council meetings the question about gritting, so that we can prompt it if it hasn't happened.
We won't hopefully will
We probably let us know the next time.
Well, I rang Cambridgeshire County Council and they said that they assess whether the road actually does require gritting. So, it'd be useful to know in an emergency, because it took me 2 or 3 hours really to find.
Well, you tried,
Finally,
I tried.
yeah, we all tried on one Saturday afternoon. And meanwhile, several cars had skidded nearly into the pond, so it's really dangerous.
Yeah.
And it actually went into the fence.
Yes, you were saying. So we, that is Parish Council, the great HDC, and attend to that part of the road, know that they don't grit with like gravy waving.
Yeah. And also maybe if I go back and look at the volunteer list before and approach those people to see if they still want to be involved. So I've got an idea of...
Good. Thank you. Discuss.
Yeah.
Yeah? Thank you. Right. Moving on, item 5.4, discuss letter from Andy Bush and decide on any action as required. So you have heard Andy's comments at the beginning of the meeting. You will have seen his email that came through, and there is in your supporting documents a proposed response to Andy regarding the points that he has raised. So, any comments?
Is what we've got here, this is a draft version, isn't it?
It is a draft.
Which we are to approve before it gets sent. Presumably it's sent personally, just a one-to-one.
Yep.
Not via Spectrum.
Nope.
And has it changed?
That got changed.
Well, sometimes we don't get the current version. So
This
the
is
version we've got, is that the one that's going to, if we say yes, it goes to this, or are we going to say...
That's why it's at the meeting, for you to decide whether or not it should go like it is, or whether it should be changed in any way. I have a couple of things that I would suggest. For the
Sorry.
for the letter?
I think it's good. It addresses the misinformation. The only thing is the one that seems to cause most concern is the under the guise, and I don't see why, if that was not meant to offend, then we just apologise for that.
Yeah, I think that section could be certainly shorter, and could just say that we apologise that using the term under the guise has caused offence.
I'd agree with that.
Personally. And I think that under the first section, which is incorrect information, I think there could be a paragraph added there, which I think should say, you will recall that at the meeting, Peter had to spend time at the beginning of the meeting correcting the information that certain parishioners had, because as you recall, at the start of the meeting, because of the complete facts were not sent to people, they came under a misapprehension that the Parish Council hadn't undertaken certain things, and we had to spend time correcting them. So I would like to add that paragraph in.
As Bidemy says, it's not kind of necessary because you've already made the point that the information was in.
But we are asked to justify.
Well, I think you provided the evidence as to why you made the statement, or the statement was made, rather, that something was incorrect, so it's there.
Fine. That's why we've got it at the meeting, as to whether or not things need to be included or not. Personally, I'd like to see that added in the first section. The second section, I believe, should be shortened to just apologise for the fact that this this term was used, and that it has caused offence, and we apologise. Because we don't want to cause offence, we don't have to cause offence.
I think we should say no offence was meant.
Well, yeah, no offence was meant.
Just pick the wrong word.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the wrong
Yeah.
word.
So under that title, it should say that no offence was made by using this term. Was meant by using this term. Yeah? Would everybody be
But
happy
it was,
with that?
I think I would say, in hindsight, it's an inappropriate term.
Yeah, we are apologising for using it. Yeah? And then the rest of the letter, there was some confusion about the minutes. So the minutes, of course, were available on the website in draft form prior to the meeting of the 5th of February. There was a little bit that happened after the meeting, when they were on the 12th, they were accidentally replaced by the agenda, I think.
Yeah.
But that was then corrected shortly afterwards. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Other comments? Any other comments?
I wouldn't make it any longer. I know you want your comment in, but I think yeah,
Okay.
because it's long. There's a lot of stuff in it.
There's a lot of information in there. Yeah. Any other comments?
I suppose my only other thought is about possibly a summary statement that says, in a sense, on both sides, we need to be a bit smarter about the words we use and think about the consequences of either taking certain actions or flagging certain issues. We need to be thinking about what are the likely consequences of this, so that we are, I guess, just a bit more thoughtful about what we say and how we say it.
Yeah, but on the other hand, the letter answers the comments that are raised.
Sure.
And I'm quite happy that if in Spectrum this month, we put in, we repeat the phrase that we're going to use in the letter regarding using the term under the guise, that we apologise for using it, and that no offence was meant by using it. And we'll put that in Spectrum.
Yeah.
I'm proposing that goes in Spectrum.
Yeah.
Because there was no intent.
Can I ask about the comments about inaccuracies?
Yeah, will that be in the reply that comes to you?
Or will I go into Spectrum?
you may want to read that first of all.
Okay.
Because it points out what we believe is the incorrect information
Okay.
that was contained in the emails.
I mean, otherwise I think it's a fulsome response.
But I certainly wouldn't put that in unless you want me to.
I'll read your response this evening.
Because both what I'm suggesting and proposing is that the letter goes to you and that we will publish an apology in Spectrum for the use of the term under the guise. Because as we've said, no offence was meant by it, it was taken, it was the wrong phrase.
I'd be happy to second that.
First of all, any more debate? No? So I'll propose that. Graham's going to second it. All in favour? Thank you. So now, item 6 on the agenda is to consider and decide upon matters relating to finance and risk assessment. 1. Authorise payment of any bills including the client's salary. And there were 2 items on this, which were JSC services £660 and client salary £539.07. I propose that those are paid. Thank you. 1 month. And all those in favour? Thank you very much. The preceptor has been confirmed at £28,000 a month. And the monies received was £80 from Park for the payment of Golex, which is great. Thank you very much. That sorts that bit out. Council's items, information only, no discussion, no decisions. Kieran? Nothing from you, Ian? William? Anne?
No, I don't think so.
Sharon? Graham?
We've got it the wrong way. Did we agree about what's happening around
I have
the
done it
paint?
the wrong way, haven't I?
The paint on the pavilion.
It will.
Is that going to be progressed legally? You can't discuss it.
You can't discuss it. Can't discuss it. I can remember.
Because the trouble is, you leave these things for too long, it becomes sort of an expression board, doesn't it?
Right. Okay. On that basis, I declare the meeting closed. Thank you very much for coming.